Varex-9 was silent, cold, and dark. Not a single light burned across the surface of the once human colony, the K. Thal landing craft touched the ground softly, its engines humming low and fading out as the rear hatch opened. 5 tall armored alien scouts stepped onto the soil, scanning their surroundings with glowing blue eyes. They saw broken buildings, twisted metal, and long vines covering human structures. There was no wind, no animals, no voices, only the quiet breath of dead history. Commander Zell of the Kthel Dominion stepped forward, his claws tapping against the metal of his leg armor. He looked around with a grin and said to his team, "So this is what happens when humans lose power. They run from the dark like frightened hatchlings." The others chuckled. One of them kicked a broken helmet from the ground and added, "They probably cried when the lights went out. How pathetic." They moved deeper into the ruins, searching for data cores or technology to steal. Their scanners showed nothing. Alive, no heat, no movement, no sound. They spread out in a wide pattern, lights from their suits cutting thin lines through the shadows. But the light never reached far, and the air felt heavy, thick, like it was watching them. Scout Dren stopped near a collapsed building and bent down. He found a small human toy, a plastic soldier, holding a tiny gun covered in dust. He was about to mock it when his light flickered once, twice, then it shut off. He tapped his helmet, growling in frustration. Then silence, total silence. His comms went dead. The others heard nothing. They only noticed Dren had gone silent. After a few moments, Commander Zell called out, "Dren, report." Nothing. He tried again, this time louder. Dren, respond now. Still nothing, not even static. Then one of the scouts saw something red, a small red line across the wall near where Dren had been. It wasn't paint, it was blood. Weapons were drawn now. Lights scanned faster, wider. Movements grew quicker. The joking was gone now, only alert silence and growing fear remained. Suddenly, a voice came over the comms, not K. Thal, not from any scout. It was human. It whispered, soft but clear, "You shouldn't have come." Herexel turned sharply. His voice rose. "Who said that? Identify yourself." But there was no answer. Then more lights failed, one by one, flickering into darkness, as if the dark was eating them. The scouts formed a circle, backs to each other, weapons raised, sensors out, but still nothing came up. Cell shouted, "Retreat to the ship." Now they moved quickly towards the landing craft, but one scout stumbled and fell. He screamed only once before going silent. When they reached the ship, the hatch was already open, but no one had touched it. The pilot was gone inside. They found only his helmet crushed into the dashboard and a single word carved into the floor. "Stay." Panic began to rise. Zell slammed a clawed fist into the ship console, but it did not respond. Power was cut, engines dead, no light, no escape. He turned to the others and tried to keep control. "Hold position. We wait for dawn. The dark cannot last forever." But that was the mistake. The sun on Varex-9 had been blocked for years. The planet trapped in a constant eclipse. The colony was abandoned because no one could grow food. No light meant no life. But something else had stayed behind, something that didn't need light, something that had learned to move, live, and hunt in the shadows. One of the remaining scouts began shaking. He mumbled, "They told us humans feared the dark. They said it made them weak, but he is strong, stronger here, like he belongs to it." The others stared at him, fear in their eyes, fear not of what they saw, but of what they couldn't see. Then the voice came again, louder, closer this time. "We don't fear the dark, we are the dark." They opened fire blindly, energy blasts lighting up ruins for seconds, then fading again. Nothing was there, nothing was ever there, but something was watching always, moving. In the final moment of that night before the report ended, only a single sound was caught on the black box of the landing ship. It was not a scream, not a gunshot. It was a quiet breath followed by a whisper, "Run." That was the last signal received from Varex-9 before all contact was lost. The Kthel soldiers gathered near the dead ship, the lights around them weak and shaking, their breaths visible in the cold air that pressed on them like a weight. Commander Zell paced back and forth, his mind racing with thoughts and fear. He had lost 3 of his best scouts in less than 1 hour, and there was no trace of any enemy, no visual, no heat, no movement on the scanners. And yet something was there, something smart, something brutal, and it was not afraid of them. He ordered the remaining 2 soldiers to set up a perimeter force field's motion detectors, light towers, anything they had left from the supply crates. Each tower was placed carefully, forming a glowing circle of safety. They sat in the middle of the lights, their weapons aimed outward, waiting for an attack that never came. But the silence itself was an attack, the heavy silence that made every sound louder, every breath sharper, every second longer. The youngest of the soldiers, named Kel, kept checking his rifle over and over again. His hands shaking slightly, he whispered to no one, "I trained for 10 years. I survived lava fields, asteroid storms, blade duels. I was ready for war. But this is something else. This isn't war. This is being hunted. And I don't even know by." Wetzel growled, "Shut up, keep your head and stay alert. The darkness is only fear if you let it in." But even he did not believe his own words anymore. He looked at the scanners again, hoping to see a signal, a heat source, a sign, but there was nothing again, just static and emptiness yet again. The wind whispered through the broken buildings, and in it a sound something like a footstep, but no movement followed. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt strange in the blackness. The lights began to hum strangely, then one of the towers popped with a loud spark and died, then another and another. They rushed to replace the batteries, but they found the power cells drained, not used, not broken, just empty, as if something had sucked them dry. Then came the smell, a faint metallic scent like blood mixed with fire. Something was burning, but they saw no fire. Kel walked toward the edge of the light, holding his rifle tight. Suddenly, he stopped, eyes wide. He raised his hand, pointing forward, but not speaking. Zell ran up beside him, looked where he pointed, and saw a message scratched into a fallen metal wall just a few meters outside the light. The words were not alien, they were human, simple, deep, and cruel. They read, "You turned off the sun, now meet what grows without it." Kel stepped back and his foot hit something soft. He looked down and screamed. It was Dren's helmet, split open, filled with blood, sitting right behind him, though no one had seen or heard anyone approach. Panic surged. Zell grabbed Kel and pulled him back toward the center of the light, but his eyes kept moving, scanning the darkness, breathing fast, heart pounding. This is no soldier, no beast. This is something else. It plans, it plays, it waits. And then the light vanished, not all at once, but slowly, like darkness was melting into the air, absorbing every glow. Each tower fizzled, died, and then all was black again, pure black, so deep that even their suits could not pierce it. Zell shouted, "Form up, stay close, switch to night vision." But the screen stayed blank, all systems failed. From the dark came breathing, not loud, just steady, calm, and cold. Then footsteps, not running, not rushing, just walking slow and sure, as if the one walking had no fear at all. Suddenly, Kel screamed and fired blindly, red bolts cutting across the night and lighting up shadows for a split second. And in that flash they saw him, or thought they did, a tall figure, all black, wrapped in cloth armor that swallowed light, face, hidden eyes shining red, not from anger, but something worse, calm, focus, control. And then the figure vanished again before the lights faded back to black. Kel was gone, only his rifle left spinning on the ground. Zell turned in circles, weapon raised, calling for backup, for command, for anyone. But only silence answered again. The voice came soft from behind him, not close, not far, just there. "They told you we feared the dark, because they feared what we became in it." Zell ran, not toward the ship, not toward safety, but into the ruins, desperate to find shelter or anything that could make this stop. He fell through a cracked floor and landed hard in a basement. Broken lab equipment all around him. He looked up, breathing heavy, and saw writing on the wall. Old human ink, faded, but still there, "Adapt to darkness or die." And in that moment, he understood this was not random. This was not luck. This was not one man. This was training. This was evolution. This was vengeance. The predators had come to mock the weak, and now they were hunted like animals. Sector 7 was where the shadows felt deepest, even during the rare hours when Virex 9's eclipsed sky gave off faint glows. The ruins here held strange echoes, like memories of pain whispering through shattered glass and twisted iron. Commander Zell limped through the broken corridor, his side bleeding where sharp metal had torn through his armor, his comms dead, his weapon low on charge. But worst of all, his soldiers were gone. Keldren the pilot all vanished like whispers erased from a page. Without fire, without struggle, just gone. He stopped for a moment inside what looked like an old human school desks. Tossed aside walls, cracked with age screens, still frozen with lessons of long ago. The words on the board still clear in human script. Adapt, overcome, endure. His breath fogged the air inside his helmet, and he sat against the wall, gripping his rifle tightly, knowing something watched him, something that had been watching from the moment they landed, maybe even before. Suddenly his helmet pinged once, a weak signal flared up, flickered, and then connected. A grainy security feed came alive in his visor, an old camera system deep in the colony's underground tunnels. It showed a figure moving through the dark, not rushing, not hiding. Just walking with purpose. The figure wore black armor, layered with strange cloth, that moved like smoke. It blended into the walls, the ground, the very darkness itself. No helmet, no glowing eyes, just steady breath, and a presence that made Zell feel like prey. He zoomed in, tried to scan the figure's body, but the suit was unlike anything he had seen. It gave off no heat, no light. It was cold, colder than the air around it, like it was designed to vanish completely from technology. Then came the face, or what little of it could be seen. The lower jaw was scarred, the lips firm. The eyes were shadows, and yet they burned with purpose. The human did not look lost, did not look afraid. He looked like he was home. Zell's hands trembled, and he whispered a word he never thought he would say: ghost. The feed cut out, static returned, then silence again. The air inside the school grew cold, colder than before. Not natural cold, but the kind that warned of something near. Zell stood and backed away slowly, rifle raised and heart thudding in his chest, exited the school, and entered a courtyard full of shattered statues. The remains of human leaders, perhaps all broken faces erased by time and war. He stepped through the center when he heard it behind him. Not footsteps, not breathing, something softer, a whisper just outside his hearing, like a lullaby in a dead language. He spun and fired again, bright bolts lighting the dark, and for a split second, he saw the figure again, crouched on the roof above. Watching, still not attacking, just watching, then gone. Gangsel knew now this was not madness. This was control. Every step, every scare, every moment of terror was designed, built with purpose. This human had lived in the dark for years, maybe more, trained in it, hunted in it, and now he was the master of it. Back at the Cathal Dominion Command Center, like years away, the surviving drone data finally reached the high command officers gathered around the display, watching the last recorded footage. From Verux 9, the image of the dark figure, the way he moved, the way soldiers vanished. Some believed it was a ghost, some said it was a prototype weapon, but one voice spoke, calmly, clearly, a veteran strategist who had studied Earth's history. He said, "I know what that is. That is a human special forces shadow operative. They were trained to fight in total blackout. To hunt without light, to kill without sound. They were used only when the enemy was not supposed to survive." The room went silent, and one younger officer asked, "Why would they still be on Verux 9? It's a dead world," the old strategist replied. "Maybe they were left behind, maybe they stayed behind, or maybe they chose to stay, because they became something else, something that belongs in the dark." Meanwhile, on Verux 9, Zell found an old shelter. Underground, clean, dry, stocked with supplies, and still running on low. Emergency power lights flickered weakly, and for the first time in hours, he felt safe. But safety was the real lie, and the darkness knew that. He locked the door, sealed the vents, set traps at every entrance, but inside his heart, he knew it was not enough, because this enemy did not fight like the Cathal did. He did not come in with explosions or numbers. He came with patience and silence and shadows. And as Zell sat down beside the power core trying to restore the comms, he heard it again, the whisper, not through his ears this time, but through the emergency speaker system. 3 words spoken with calm finality. Zell stared at the speaker as the words "I see you" faded into silence. The voice had no anger, no fear, no hurry, just control, calm, total confidence. It made His blood felt cold like ice flowing in his veins. He backed away from the console eyes, sweeping the room looking for any movement, any flicker of shadow that did not belong. The lights flickered again, the power core weak and pulsing like a tired heartbeat. His hands moved quickly, resetting traps, checking seals, but in his heart he knew it would not matter. This enemy had already come and gone. Without opening a single door, he turned on his visor camera again, hoping for some connection, any link back to his command center. But all he saw was static, and then a flash of memory. File playing by itself, his own camera footage from earlier that day, the moment when they landed on Varex 9. The laughter, the mocking, the careless confidence of a team that believed they were the top of the galaxy, and then frame by frame it played. Their downfall, Dren disappearing, the first blood on the wall, Kel's scream, the silent helmet of the pilot, the writing etched in steel, and then the message carved into the ship itself, stay. File paused on one image, a frozen frame of the human's face just before he vanished into the dark again. It was not rage in his eyes, it was something worse, something deeper: purpose, discipline, clarity. This was not revenge, this was a mission, a duty not born from hate, but from cold resolve. Exel shut off the feed, his hands shaking. Now he whispered to himself, this is not a man. This is a weapon, a ghost trained to make fear feel real. And he was right. Far beneath Varex 9's surface, in a chamber, the Dominion never found a group of figures sat in silence. Their suits dark, their faces hidden, their movements still. They watched Zell through a private feed. They had eyes across the colony, hidden drones woven into the ruins. Not machines, but organic watchers, grown to survive off energy leaks and solar fragments. The human who hunted the K. Thal was not alone. He was one of many survivors who had been declared dead years ago, when Earth lost contact with the colony. But they did not die. They adapted, they trained, they waited, and now when the Dominion returned to take what they thought was abandoned, the shadows responded. The leader among them spoke slowly, his voice like stone sliding across stone. We let one live. He carries our warning, he spreads our fear, and fear is a better shield than any wall. They will remember what happens when you turn your back on those born in darkness. Above them in the ruins, Zell moved again. He left the shelter. It was no use staying in a box waiting to die. He needed higher ground, maybe a signal, maybe rescue. He climbed through broken towers, up metal staircases, past fallen glass and wire, until he reached the roof of what was once a government center, now a silent tomb for a colony lost in time. He looked around, and for a moment he felt like he was alone. Again, like maybe the human had left, maybe the fear was a trick, maybe he had a chance. And then a sound came behind him, not loud, just the scrape of cloth against concrete. He spun, raised his weapon, and froze because the human stood there, not charging, not hiding, just standing like a statue carved from shadow. Exel shouted, who are you? What do you want? Why are you doing this? The answer came not in screams, not in madness, just in words simple and final. We do this because you never feared the dark. And now you will. Exel fired every shot he had, energy bolts lighting the sky, cutting through air. But the human moved between them, like smoke, like memory, like something that had never been there at all. He dropped the empty weapon and ran again across the rooftops, jumping over gaps, breathing hard, heart racing, the wind cold on his face. Made it to the edge of the city, found a beacon, an emergency flare, and launched it into the sky. Red light burst upward, breaking the darkness for a moment, but in that flash of red he saw them all around the buildings, the walls, the streets, figures watching from the dark. Not one, not two, but many. The shadows had faces, and those faces were human. Fell to his knees, whispering, please, what do you want from me? And the answer came from the dark, not with hate, not with fury, just truth. We want you to remember. Then the red light faded, and all was dark again. Flare had burned out, but its red afterglow still pulsed behind Zell's eyes as he lay in the dust, hands trembling, heart slanting against his ribs like it wanted to escape his chest. The sky above him swallowed the light again, leaving only the deep, endless dark, and the colony around him became silent like the breath of a beast holding still. Just before striking, he could still feel the presence of eyes, hundreds of them watching from corners, from broken rooftops, from doorways. where no warmth lived anymore, not machine eyes, not scanners but human eyes trained to wait, trained to blend, trained to punish. Crawled to his feet slowly, wounded, dirty armor cracked and smeared with dried blood. He held nothing now, no rifle, no scanner, only a small knife meant for survival, not war, but war had already been lost. This was not battle, this was judgment. A sound came low and distant, a hum building like wind rising in a dead forest. Zell turned to see the old transport. Hub lights flickering, then flaring, and then dying again. He ran toward it, unsure why. Maybe instinct, maybe madness, maybe because it was the only place left untouched by shadow. When he reached the doors, they opened without sound, as if inviting him in. Inside was a control center, cracked walls lined with screens, most dead, but one screen flickered, alive, and showed something not outside. Not from a drone, but from deep underground. It showed humans, not one, not two, but an entire squad moving in silence. Armor, black faces, hidden rifles held low like wolves, stalking without sound, without rush. They walked through long tunnels, clean, smooth, their boots leaving no mark, their eyes sharp like blood. Essel stared, his breath caught in his throat. These were not survivors. They were a force built in darkness, tempered by isolation, trained to be the silence between heartbeats. Then a second screen lit up and showed something else, another Cathal ship in orbit above. Virex 9, fresh reinforcements waiting for signal, ready to land, assuming the colony was empty, assuming they would find weakness. Then it happened, the screens all came alive, showing images from across the colony, bodies of Cathal scouts, twisted and broken, their faces locked in frozen horror, messages carved into walls, into ships, into helmets, all with the same chilling words, "We are the dark." The voice came again from the same speaker system. It was him, the one who hunted, the one who survived and shaped others to do the same. His voice calm, even quiet, but sharp enough to cut through fear, like a blade through silk. Tell them what you saw, tell them what happens when you step into the dark without respect. Zell screamed, why not kill me like the others? Why leave me? And the answer struck deeper than any weapon. You are not the target, you are the message. He collapsed onto his knees again, realization flooding through him. They had let him live, not out of mercy, but by design. He was the echo that would carry fear back to his leaders. He was the whisper, the story, the proof that the darkness was no longer empty, that the humans who once feared it now ruled it. Then he heard movement behind him, not rushing, not charging, just steady steps, and he turned and saw him again, not a ghost, not a monster, but a man. Eyes, hidden armor, dull, a shadow made flesh. Zell opened his mouth to beg, but the human raised a hand, not in anger but in silence, and handed him a small black box, the kind used to record memories, flight logs, personal stories. And then without a word he vanished again into the dark, like smoke pulled by invisible wind. Later, when the rescue ship arrived, it found Zell alone, covered in dust, eyes hollow, shaking, but alive. They took him aboard and left quickly, never staying longer than needed. And when they asked him what happened, he simply handed them the black box and said nothing. The recording inside showed everything: the hunt, the whispers, the shadows, the lessons, the final words spoken just before the screen went black again. You turned off the light and left us here. We did not die. We became what you fear, the high towers of the Cathal dominions. Central Command rose above the clouds, shining bright with crystal spires and golden light. It was a city built on the belief of dominance, a place where fear was a tool used against others, never something they accepted for themselves. But that day, the light inside the chambers seemed weaker, the shadows deeper, as if the darkness from Virex 9 had followed the last survivor home. Commander Zell stood before the Grand Council, his armor scrubbed clean, but his body still trembling inside his bones. Still cold from that cursed place, the counselors looked at him with narrowed eyes, their scales polished robes, heavy with metals of battles. One against weaker species. They expected him to speak of malfunction, of mistake, of human foolishness. But what he said instead left the chamber silent. He told them about the whisper in the shadows, about the silent hunter who moved without sound, about how one by one his team vanished without trace, how they never saw the weapon, only felt the eyes. How Every defense failed. How even the ship had been turned into a message, not a vehicle, and when he finished he placed the black box on the table and stepped back. The box played the recordings, the voice, the images, the faces of the missing soldiers. The message carved into steel and bone: we are the dark, and then silence again. Nothing more, nothing less. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Counselor Varn, the most senior, leaned forward, his voice sharp and smooth. You claim that a human did this. Alone, one soldier turned into some myth, and you expect us to believe this? Il answered, not one. Many a unit, a shadow force left behind when their colony lost power, abandoned. But they did not die, they trained, and waited. Another counselor laughed, shaking his long head at the thought. We destroyed their fleet, we shattered their cities, and they hide in ruins. Playing ghosts, they are nothing. So looked at him and said nothing, because he had seen the truth, and he knew they would not understand. Until the darkness came for them too. Only one among them sat still, not laughing, not mocking, an old tactician who had fought in the first contact wars with humanity. He looked into Zell's eyes and said, I have seen their kind before. I have seen humans turn caves into fortresses and silence into weapons. I warned you, they do not fight like us. They adapt, they wait. And when they strike from where you least expect. But the others dismissed him, dismissed them all, and voted to send another team to Virex 9, this time larger, with more weapons, more light, more ships. They believed firepower would fix fear. They believed numbers would crush the whisper. But they forgot fear is not broken by guns. It is born in the mind, and it spreads. Without sound, as the fleet prepared, Zell sat in silence in his quarters, watching the stars through a wide window. He knew what they would face. He knew how little those lights would matter. He remembered the eyes watching from rooftops and tunnels. And he whispered a single word before turning away, lost. Meanwhile, deep beneath Virex 9, in the tunnels untouched by light, the humans moved like shadows. Each step placed with purpose, each breath silent. They watched the sky through hidden sensors. They saw the ships gathering above, and they did not run. They did not shout. They simply prepared. Leader stood at the heart of their dark chamber and raised his voice, not loud but strong. We were left behind. We were forgotten, but now the galaxy returns to take again what it never earned. They think we will kneel. They think we will hide, but they do not understand. We are no longer what we were. We have become something new, forged in the cold, sharpened by silence, made whole by the dark around. Him the others nodded. Some had been children when the colony lost power. Some had been soldiers, some engineers, some just farmers. But now they were something more. They were the dark's answer. Looked up as the sensors showed the first wave descending. Lights glowing, weapons ready. He turned to his people and said, let them come. Let them bring their fire. Let them try to blind what they cannot see. We will not run. We will not shout. We will wait. And when they step into the dark, we will be waiting. And above, as the first ships began landing, floodlights cutting across the ruins, and soldiers shouting orders into the empty streets, a single message appeared on every visor, every screen, every helmet. Feed we warned youth. Kthal Armada descended over Virex 9, with thunderous engines shaking the sky and floodlights, casting harsh lines of glare across the ruined fields and broken towers. The dropships disgorged wave after wave of soldiers clad in gleaming armor, their weapons blazing light beams meant to purge the darkness and expose any hiding human. But the darkness had become an ally, not a foe, and it answered with a silent roar that swallowed every glare. The humans had prepared for this moment. They deployed electromagnetic disruptors to overload the Kthal light arrays, leaving them blind in the very brilliance they worshipped. As the soldiers spilled onto the cratered soil, they found not empty streets, but a living shadow, waiting to strike. Confusion rippled through their ranks as they raised their rifles, only to discover their targeting systems jammed, their helmets flickering with static, and the very light they brought turned against them, illuminating nothing but the blackest void beneath the glare. Energy shields dropped like leaves in a storm as figures dressed in black armor moved with uncanny grace, born from years of practice in utter night, cutting through platoons like blades through silk. Human warrior was a ghost, a whisper of death, slipping between gun barrels and carving fear into every beating heart. The floodlights pulsed, then died one by one, until every beam was snuffed out by invisible hands, and the battlefield became a cathedral of silence, broken only by the distant cries of those who realized too late that the hunters no longer fled from darkness, but embodied it. By dawn, the Cathal survivors lay scattered across the valley of ruins. Their proud banners trampled their armor, shattered their bodies, bearing the marks of cold precision. The humans did not pursue nor celebrate. They emerged from every shadow, standing in silent formation, their faces hidden behind black visors, their posture calm and measured, as if they were still awaiting orders on some faraway training ground. Commander Zell was found kneeling among broken rifles, clutching his helmet in trembling claws, staring at the horizon where those silent figures stood in uncanny stillness. And then the message came. It echoed across every comm channel and imprinted itself onto every data slate, a single phrase broadcasting on loop. You assumed we feared the dark, but you were wrong. We became the darkness itself. The words cut deeper than any blade and seeded a terror that no light could dispel. The humans turned away. Without a sound, they melted into the ruins, leaving behind only the memory of their silhouettes and the echo of that final warning. The Cathal never returned to claim what they assumed was a dead world. Instead, they fortified the borders of Virex 9 with treaties sworn in shadow, and vowed never to enter darkness without respect and dread, forever etched in their souls on holoscreens across the Dominion. The phrase "We are the dark" became an oath, not a legend, a lesson carved into the annals of history, whispered by commanders to new recruits. Let this be your shield, let this be your sword, for darkness remembers those who fear it and hunts those who ignore it.